You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, welcome to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio. I am your host, Rick Thompson. This show is about sobriety and recovery. Each week, we discuss a different topic relating to addiction with the aim that you can gain some insight, guidance, and hope from our discussions. We focus the show in 3 different segments. 1, the viewpoint of the families dealing with the family members suffering from alcoholism and addiction so they may assist them in obtaining treatment. 2, the psychological trauma and emotional damage alcoholics and addicts and their families experience. 3, the role of the insurance companies and associate providers and their part in the recovery process.
Good evening. Welcome to the broadcast. The topics for tonight's show is young people in addiction and unconditional surrender. Tonight we have a very special guest in the studio, Diana Wilson, who is not only a woman in recovery, but is also a surfer, passionate educator, student, and personal coach. She also provides scientific substance abuse prevention to schools around the world. Diana is also the CEO of Global Youth Prevention, which provides on-site, up-to-date education at schools on making healthy choices, communication skills, eating disorders, cyber addiction, bullying, cutting, how to help a friend, creating interruptions to self-doubting, limiting beliefs, the risk of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. Her website is www.gyprevention.org. Hello, Diana. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hello. It's great to be here.
Can you start off and share us with your mission statement and a little bit of your story and background?
Yeah, my pleasure. My mission statement is, when I was an adolescent, I really wanted somebody to step in and tell me the truth about drug and alcohol, because when I learned from it, I learned from my siblings. So when I got clean and sober, I thought, how powerful that would be if I were to get information early on. So today I'm able to give up-to-date scientific information with it's not a fear-based program. It's to stand beside and lift kids up, and so they can live up to their potential and not let alcohol and other drugs tear them down like they did me.
Okay. What do you feel are the most positive growth aspects of being in recovery for yourself?
Is the relationship with myself. I was able to go back and finish school, to be able to touch people's lives, touch my life. Mm-hmm. The relationship I got to rebuild with my parents, where they trusted me, loved me, and I got to be there while they passed, and to get a concept of a higher power that I never believed in.
Right. Can you give us a little bit of history of your participation in substance abuse?
Absolutely. It's interesting looking outside this window, and this is where I grew up. This was my stomping ground. I grew up in a beautiful home with pretty parents, went to private school, was educated, and I had older siblings. My sister used to be a pro surfer, and she started drinking and using drugs early. So my social norm was, I thought, all surfers use drugs or smoked pot. So when I got older, I didn't have the fear, because I didn't see negative consequences due to my sister's marijuana smoking or drinking. So I wasn't as afraid to try it, and when I did, I didn't realize that first time use, you can become addicted to it. My relationship and the feeling I got from that, I wish I had somebody in my school to be able to share what that chemical change was, what was happening in my adolescent brain. My addiction progressed very quickly. I got expelled from school. I got in trouble with my parents. I developed a double life, and it progressed from marijuana to drinking to the progression of using crystal meth and cocaine. I was living in Hawaii at the time, and I remember surfing with this friend of mine, and it matters who you surround yourself with. And when I went to surf, and we got out of the water, he pulled out this glass pipe, and I didn't know what it was. And when I tried it, the reaction my brain had was The dopamine receptors, the flood of serotonin was overwhelming. And I knew that I needed to stay away from this particular drug. And having a double life, at the time I was married and could never share that I was dying. You know, I was a good girl that became very sick with addiction, where my family didn't understand it, and it progressed into, I was like 35 pounds skinnier than I am now. I was delusional, but I knew in high school I was an addict. I remember sitting in my history class going, I think I have a drug problem. And I wish I had a safe place to been able to to tell a counselor or tell a teacher, to have them get me help.
Right, to reach out.
Yeah, to reach out, to have where there wasn't going to be any negative consequences.
Right.
Because my family, my parents were not alcoholics. They allowed us to drink at home. They thought it was safer. They didn't know any better. And when I did ask for help again, when I was in first year of college, my parents again didn't know what resources to reach out to. And I don't think they wanted to believe that their daughter was an addict, and had an issue with alcoholism and addiction. But, by the time I asked for the third time, they realized that I was going to die if I didn't get help.
So basically, would you think that was because their world was just that insulated?
Yeah, I think my parents, they drank socially. Like, the World Health Organization, I never got drunk in front of my parents. I never used drugs in front of my parents, or, so they didn't think or saw that I was an addict or an alcoholic. Because the World Health Organization, the definition of an alcoholic or an addict is the repetitive use of a substance despite negative consequences. My parents never saw the consequences because I lived a double life.
Right.
But when I did divulge and say, I think I have a drug problem, and thank God I had a girlfriend of mine that intervened the second time I asked for help from my parents. My girlfriend, we've had conversations about that because my mom was very busy. They were social. My mother was an actress. My dad had a big law firm here in Los Angeles. They thought I would be able to just stop. That was my dad's philosophy. Then just stop. If it's causing a problem, then just stop. And my mother was very busy at the time when I asked, and she's like, "This is really not a good time. I'm having a dinner party."
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I got some food inside me, and the next morning I got some sleep, and I was like, maybe I was just overreacting.
Mm-hmm. So,
but I realize now that they were in fear. They were in fear because my mother was going to, she felt guilty, and she didn't want to look at like, oh my God, what did I do wrong with my daughter? And what I share with parents when I do parent meetings at schools, where parents, it's their responsibility to protect their kids.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it takes parents 1 to 2 years to really realize there's something wrong with their child. It's just not adolescent angst, but their friends, it will only take them 1 to 2 weeks to go, there's something wrong with my friend. And that's where I really stand for adolescents, to stand for one another. If they're seeing a friend struggling with addiction, eating disorder, or you're seeing them bullied, or they're in an abusive relationship, or they're self-harming, you get them help. And you get them involved and let them know you're standing for them, because you don't want them to die, and you can save a life and you can intervene. I don't know what could have happened or who I could have become if my parents or my friends really stood for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the help.
I understand that. If you haven't been exposed to it, then you don't know the signs. You don't know the trigger points. And back in those days, there were two sets of parents. This is my experience. They were either drinking and smoking and fighting and insane, or completely structured and had this nest that they had created. And anything foreign to the nest, there was like a denial that immediately went up until the problem was so evident that there had to be something done, and that's it's a miracle you got sober. Really, seriously, wow. I mean, especially with all the financial insulation and all the equipment. I mean, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I wanted the help because I saw how my parents, they lived, and they had a huge life. They had tons of friends. My mother loved to, have parties and socialize. And, because I drank responsibly in front of them, they thought that I had a different relationship with alcohol.
Of course, because you're not going to go out and get fucked
And alcoholic
up.
and addicts are super smart, and one of the number one reasons adolescents are afraid to share with their parents is because they don't want to disappoint them.
Of course.
And the other one is they don't want to lose their freedom. But the number one reason what I hear from adolescents, because I've been doing this for 14 years, speaking to middle school and high school students, when parents create parameters and share their expectations and what are going to be the negative consequences for both parents, even if they're together or separate, that they're on the same page on what is the family rules around alcohol and drug use underage. And the number one reason adolescents will refrain from using is they don't want to disappoint their parents.
Right. Yeah, if the rules are set out up front, then right, there's parameters. How were you feeling yourself in your heart when you were going through all this, and you go to your parents and you weren't getting the answers that you wanted or needed?
I was in a lot of fear. Because I grew up in a pretty house with pretty parents, so I continued to create that outside look. But having a double life is exhausting, and not having a real love connection is. And I did marry somebody that was an alcoholic and an addict, even though he was a doctor, and I know he practiced medicine under the influence, because addiction does not discriminate against what it says on your business card.
That is true, and it runs rampant in the medical profession as well. It does.
I knew personally his friends that were in the medical industry, so it looked good. We lived in Hawaii. I was married to a doctor, but the disease continued to grow and flourish, and my double life started to melt together.
How'd that affect your marriage?
It really affected it. I never had the past relationships. I really would be attracted to the ones that were not using drugs or alcohol because it grounded me.
Makes sense.
But when I met my ex-husband, it seemed really glamorous. It was fun, but it was ugly. It wasn't the marriage that I was raised around. My parents were married 50 years. They had a great relationship.
Right.
They communicate. I mean, it wasn't perfect. There is no perfect, but they truly loved each other. And I knew this was not the marriage that I was raised around. That's one of the reasons why I wouldn't have kids, because I was terrified if something were to happen that these kids would be used as pawns, and we didn't have the social skills, and I wouldn't be able to look in a baby's eyes under the influence. I just couldn't.
Right. I understand.
So it was sad because I really loved him and I knew he really loved me, but we were liars, cheaters, and thieves.
Yeah.
That's what we became, and I became. And he didn't want me sober, and he didn't want me as an addict. So he kind of liked having me sick, but then when I did go into treatment, we did try to work on our marriage.
Well, that's good, because then he's not trying to control you completely.
No, and I had so much remorse and so much guilt that going back to him when I had 2 years clean and sober, he reached out to me because I left everything in Hawaii. I left the house, I left the horses, I left everything.
Right.
Because that wasn't going to make me happy. I knew that at this point I was dying. I was dying from severe addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the horses in the house and the money and that's not going to save you. That's going to kill you faster than it's going to help you.
Plus, I didn't have a house to put the horse in. I didn't have anything. So what am I going to do?
You would need a house.
I need some stuff here.
You're going to need stuff for the horse, and that's
wasn't going to work out. Pawn the horse. That's what would happen. I would have pawned the pony for some crack. I don't know. That's what it would have happened.
I wonder if anybody's ever done that.
Oh,
pawned horses for crack.
There's nothing that shocks me. I've heard every story. At every school, that's one of the things that I realized today is going to so many schools and teaching is that even with parents, it's like parents, if you can stand and speak your truth and go to my website, reach out to me. I'm happy to coach if you're worried about a child, but there's so many tools that I've learned. I am not a parent, and it's the hardest job on the planet, but I'm so grateful I get to be one of the spokes in the wheel to help raise healthy, responsible, loving, passionate kids. But I've learned a lot of parenting tips from parents that have got their kids through high school and college successfully.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. So I've learned from them, and everything I've learned is from parents that have, walked the talk.
So how do you deal when you interact with the young people when you're talking to them?
With adolescents, I speak from the heart. I'm able to walk into a school because, one, I'm not a liability. I'm not a history teacher speaking about her past use or drug addiction. That would be awkward, which I've seen happen. But I'm able to walk in and speak about the negative consequences. I don't use AA language when I walk into a school. These kids are not in recovery. They're just regular kids. And I get to clean up misconceptions, things that they've heard in movies and TV or from their peers or from their siblings, that they get to ask questions in a safe environment where nobody mocks them, I make it respectful. I'm not there to do scare tactics, but you can't argue with science. Science it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you have a brain, we're talking about science.
Right.
All kids that use or drink are not going to become addicts, but I'm able to speak about, family genetics, first-time use, and my experience. And, as long as I speak from the heart and go from my head to my heart, I'm connected to them. Once I don't go into a lecture mode, I make it where they participate. If they don't participate, then it's really no fun. So I have a lot of exercises that I do and really stand for helping a friend. And give them language on how to help a friend. And, I'm always available after class for them to come and ask questions, which I usually have 4 or 5 kids lingering, worried about a boyfriend or a sister or a mother or a cousin. And, and I never left a campus if I was worried about a student. Because I've had students go into treatment after me being there.
That's amazing.
Because they connected. They're like, you're telling my story. Because I go back to what it was like at their age,
right?
And what could happen if they continued, and why continue when you're not having fun. But I also really focus on the non-users because they are the majority, and I'm not there to only focus on the ones that may have an issue, but through data. We overestimate the amount of use that adolescents are really using. So as adults, just to be really careful with our language, when I remember hearing my parents saying you're going to want to drink, or if you do drink, and I was I was in middle school, and I was like, I really didn't want to drink, but okay, I can drink here. So it just kind of opened up the door.
Right.
So there was really never any family rules around it. But with kids, they just want information. They just, I make it fun. And they love the thing called natural highs, where we talk about ways of, changing the way they feel naturally. I surf, I snowboard. I do all the things today that I started to do before I became an addict.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So do you basically counsel these adolescents on what a sober lifestyle is?
Yeah, they ask me a lot of questions like, most of them today, if I go into they'll have somebody they know that's in recovery. Mm-hmm. That's even the kids that have no desire to ever, drink or use drugs while they're in high school. But I always let them know there will be somebody in your life that will have a problem with alcohol or drugs. And this is going to prepare them to help them, understand them, have unconditional, understanding. You can't save them. So I let them know what a 12-step program is. I let them know what treatment was like, because they want to know what treatment. What do you do in rehab? Because they've seen movies today about rehab.
Right.
And I kind of make it silly. I'm like, they put you in a closet, and they're like, really? I'm like, no. It's what it is. It's a rehabilitate my brain. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. I need to rehabilitate my brain, because I have now changed the chemistry of my brain. I have not learned to adapt to do normal things, to go to the store, to have friendships, to now completely be transparent and share myself. It was the first time when I went to treatment, it was like I got to be transparent. And it was such a great feeling and surrender. So to let them know that that it's a day-to-day, struggle, and I have to continue to work on it, and I'm not cured.
Of course.
Where if I were to delay use as an adolescent, even though I had alcoholism and addiction in my family, my risk of becoming an addict would have gone down quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So that my message is also delay, delay, delay. Like, I hope they never have to go to rehab. But I'm grateful that I get to stand in front of them, and hopefully I'll touch one kid's life. So I've had kids we do anonymous evaluations at the end of the 4-day workshop, and that's why I continue showing up and doing it, because I know I'm making a difference, even though I'm not in that school.
Right. Now, you've traveled all over the world doing this.
I have. I was with an organization that was based out of Boston that I was with them, and I loved them. But going to different schools and hearing other kids ask questions about. I have a friend that has an eating disorder. I have a girlfriend. The first school I ever went to, a girl at a private Catholic school, she lifted up her skirt and she showed me she had self-harmed herself. She'd been cutting, and I'm standing there like, this was not in the manual, So I learned everything there is, and to get an adult involved. And I'm realizing today, yes, drug and alcohol prevention education is crucial. Like, it should be in every school.
Absolutely.
And also we should speak about bullying and diversity.
Yes, because we've seen kids die from that, commit suicide because of it. Yeah, absolutely.
That bullying, and just people think that trauma is something where abuse is involved, but trauma to an adolescent can be a girl not showing up to the Sadie Hawkins dance while they're in junior high, to this boy. Because I've heard that in recovery, that it's people have been affected by other people's behavior, like these girls that were mean to a boy and ganged up on him. And it's interesting. I've heard over the years hearing that trauma can be not making it on the football team, or
different levels of emasculation for men and boys.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So letting go of the story that I had created about myself when I was in junior high. So that story carried into my adult years, and it still comes up quite often. You're not smart, because I had ADHD and I was dyslexic, and I was made fun of. I thought I was stupid because I was put in a different school, even though I tested high. but I was terrified of excelling. I was terrified of failing. I was just fearful, but on the outside, you would never have known it.
Yeah, I went through that when I was a kid too. I had ADHD. Well, then they were giving me Ritalin.
Me too.
It was the 60s.
Yeah,
and that's really the parameters. That's all they really had. And they'd send you to the short bus.
I was on the short bus
yes,
too.
Yes,
oh God, I can't believe it because all I wanted to do was be on the big bus. That was one of the big life-changing experiences. Is when we went, my brother and my sister went to the same elementary school as my father. So when I got into 6th grade, I was so excited to be on the big bus with everyone else, and everyone walked to the end of the street. So that's where we all got on the big bus. We went down to the same school my dad went to, my brother and sister. But I guess when they called on me, I wrote my name backwards. And so I don't remember all the events, but I remember saying to myself, because I didn't know what was going on, and I still have a brain where I need information.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how old a kid is, if you don't speak to them, they're going to create a story, because that's what a brain is here to do, is to solve problems.
Right, and create stories.
And so why did my parents not have conversations about like what this meant? And parents, don't be afraid to speak to your kids. Like, you got to have conversations with them. Like, early on, you think that this is what's interesting about parents. They think if they talk to their kids about substance abuse or addiction or what drugs are, or like you just bring up the legalization of marijuana, and ask them what their opinion is, so you'll get an idea of what they're thinking.
Right, sure.
Yeah, just what they're thinking, not to lecture at them. It's like have a conversation. So I don't, my parents never talked to me about this is why you're going on the short bus.
Right, because it wasn't on their radar screen. They just wanted to fix the problem and without having to get into it.
Well, they put you in a different, today, I'm really grateful to say that most schools today, they don't put them on the short bus.
Right.
They integrate them, and they have found ways that kids with ADHD learn, and that's how my teaching style is visual participation. I don't, lecture at them. I don't make them feel like they should know this information, so everybody can stay involved. But going on the short bus with kids with other disabilities, I felt like I was going to the Misfit Island from Rudolph the Rain, Rudolph. Rudolph. Yeah, so I was on the Misfit Island.
Special Rudolph.
Yeah, the special Rudolph Island, where like the guy, little boy with the dentist that couldn't be a dentist or whatever. Like, I'm like, how did I get here? How did I get here?
Yeah, I had a lot of those questions too when I was young. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
I would like to take a moment and talk to you about the Villa Treatment Center. Their integrated substance abuse and dual diagnoses program rests on foundational principles of personal responsibility, structure, and service. Whether you are at the beginning of your recovery journey or farther along the road, the Villa Treatment Center offers an individual plan to suit all of your recovery needs. Detoxification by doctors specializing in addiction medicine, residential treatment, transitional living, day treatment, and full care outpatient services are available. Please call 818-505-6900 for further information. That's 818-505-6900 and begin your recovery now. The website for Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is www.latalkradio.com. Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is on Channel 1. We are broadcasting live from our studios every Sunday at 6 p.m. West Coast time. All of our shows are archived on the www.latalkradio.com site and can be accessed 24/7. Our call number is 323-203-0815. That's 323-203-0815. And now back to our show.
Okay.
Hi, we're back, and we have Diana Wilson in the studio tonight, and she's just giving us a whole bunch of information and experience about what it's like to deal with adolescents and parents. I've got a question for you, Diana. How has this path that you were on directly affected your life, and how did these episodes affect your recovery and emotional condition?
Well, I have 18 years. I feel like there's been chapters in my recovery. The one thing about the work that I've been doing, there have been times where I've wanted to relapse. I've wanted to use. And I thought to myself, well, I have a school next week, so if I still feel the same, I'll do it after that school. So that, actually, I grew up and got to relive my high school years going back and working with kids. It's been a huge gift. They teach me more than I can ever express, and also, I'm so grateful I've been able to give the tools to parents that my parents would have been too embarrassed to have asked those questions. So how it integrates into my life, I don't know. I'm here to stand for our youth. We need to stand for our youth. We need to break habits. And I have friends that have kids, and I have no problem sharing the truth with them. Like, they need to step up, and the video games are not their babysitter. They're not here to. So I have a girlfriend that has a son that plays video games, and she's like, well, at least he's not drinking or doing drugs. I'm like, he is emotionally, he's not dating. He's not, I don't even think he's masturbating, okay? And he's an adolescent. Like, I'm no disrespect, but...
No, understood, yeah.
Yeah, but...
That's not a good sign.
That's not a good sign. He didn't go to prom. He didn't do the natural things, and he's afraid of the world out there because the video games are quite violent.
Oh, they're insane. I mean, I've looked at some of them, and my mouth dropped open. I couldn't even believe what I was watching.
And they think they're socializing because they're socializing with other people maybe around the world, but... girls are growing up much faster because boys are emotionally, it's stunting their emotional development as alcohol and other drugs stunt the frontal cortex. So does video games. And the video games, there's rehabs today.
That's amazing.
And girls are they're not dating socially, they're texting, they're not openly communicating, and I'm watching it with adults, and students are mirroring also what they're seeing at home. I mean, I see this all over the world, people texting at a dinner table. I was in Singapore working at a school, and I had the whole entire table full of the parents and the kids. They're all on their phone. My parents,
yeah, that's ridiculous.
My parents made us sit and have dinner, even though I was under the influence, but they made us have dinner with them and sit down and connect with them.
Every night, usually.
Yeah.
That's old school, though, yeah.
Yeah, but there was no cell phones because there was no cell phones.
There was no cell phones when we were kids, right?
Oh, God forbid, somebody called around dinner time. Oh, God, they had to talk to Mrs. Wilson.
Right, that's right. Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
They're like, hi, Mrs. Wilson, it's Diana there. What? Do you know what time it is?
Yeah, that's right. We're eating.
Yeah, we're eating.
Click.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I don't want your friends over. So
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, don't call past 9:30. You don't want to talk to Mrs. Wilson.
When you were early in your recovery, or maybe not early in your recovery, when did you get to the point of where you were an unconditional surrender?
That was the first night, that window of opportunity, that window of surrender, to even where the night I got stopped. I didn't even know it was going to be that window. But that moment, it was the first time I'd ever surrendered, totally surrendered, where I just remember I was looking at the clock, and I was with people I grew up with, which we were doing the exact same thing as we were in high school. And it was about 11:25, and my father used to always say, nothing good happens after midnight. And you know what? He's pretty much right when what I was doing. And I remember looking around going, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. And I was done. I can't express what that was like, because I could have stayed. Believe me, they were trying to lure me back in. And that was the first night I got on my hands and knees and said, God, please help me and take this obsession away from me. And I've taken my will back, but that night I felt like I was just somebody do something. And ever since then, I stopped using that thing like, oh, God, please help me, if I get out of this. But really understanding that overwhelming warmth of love and knowing that everything's going to be okay. With not knowing, like surrendering is letting go, but not really knowing what's going to happen. You just gotta let it. Yeah, you gotta let it go.
Yep.
But
that's true.
There's no guarantee. It could have, surrendering something over. It could be resolved 6 months from now. It could be resolved tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I have an amethyst rock that whenever I can't just really let something go, I try to all right, rock, take this from me.
Mm-hmm.
I've thrown a couple in the ocean because I'm like, it was filled. It was filled. It was like,
filled.
Okay, you don't have any more room. I got to get a new rock.
I got to
get a new rock. So, when I surf, it's surrendering. You know what I mean? Every wave, it always wins. It always wins.
Sure.
So, I love the challenge. And surrendering there's a challenge there because my ego goes, you know what? If you make that one more phone call, if you do this, then maybe this will happen. And, I want to manipulate and change, but it's that angst that I can't stand. And when I walk into a school, it's about, if I walk in with an agenda, it never goes well.
Right. Versus walking in with a clean mind and just letting it happen.
Right. Like walking in today. Like you
right.
calling me this morning. I was like, okay, because we're here for the better good. Right. If we're coming from a place of true love and passion and standing in our truth and whatever unfolds and someone out there says, I'm going to have a conversation with my son today, I'm actually going to create and have that faith that you can create change, even though your kid's going to really be pissed, but you can blame it on me. But to stand and have a conversation and rip that video game and create parameters around that. I've been badgering my girlfriend, and you know what? I will continue to do it because I love her, and I love her son. I really do, and that's where I want people in my life that will have the courage to speak their truth and give me honest feedback. I think we're really afraid of each other today. I think we're really afraid.
Yeah. Well, the whole society's scared with you. Take a look at what's going on out there. It's like I turned on the television this morning, and there's some lunatics
mm-hmm.
out there shooting at police in Louisiana, and it's like this is going to start becoming the norm, and that's unacceptable. And it's just I think about where the time period in America where you and I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
These kids couldn't even imagine it.
No,
couldn't even wrap their heads around.
My parents would say, "Come home in September." When school would get out,
right.
Come home when school's come back when school starts.
Right.
Come home when the street lights come on.
Right.
There was a lot of freedom. The only thing we had was payphones.
That's right.
But there was kids on the street. Even though today, yes, the world has changed, but years ago, I think through the Amber Alerts and the news, because the news when we were growing up was just focused in Bay Area, Los Angeles, where I grew up. But now through the web, you can get what's happening in Alabama. But it's not happening in Los Angeles, but then everybody hunkers down.
Right.
And becomes afraid of each other.
Yep.
So if we think that's normal, then we're going to continue to create more of it. But if we can continue to stand as no, we are going to create change, and that happens within our family, and we start having community. Invite your neighbors over. When you have a friend that's struggling, people used to come over our house and play bridge when I was growing up. I'm watching families become single cellular units.
Mm-hmm.
Get to know your kids' friends. Invite the friends' parents over. Let the other parents know what your rules are around drinking. You get to have conversations, and you don't get to make the parents wrong, but you also get to stand behind whatever your beliefs are.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's a structured environment for children. And a lot of people, there's just so many things that are out there that take the attention span of parents and children and spin them out into a place where they're not centered, it's not realistic. And these kids, they're seeing all this stuff, they're playing all these video games, which is detrimental, I think, to anybody's growth, in the long term. And that's one of the reasons I didn't have children, was because I thought, my God, I look at what I'd been through, and I thought, could I even begin to create an infrastructure that would be safe to bring children into? So it's...
Yeah, my girlfriends that, no disrespect, but like my girlfriends that are having kids, I'm like, we're running out of water.
Yeah, that's true.
But you know what? That's where I get to be the aunt. I get to be the friend. I get to be... villages used to help raise a child. And doing it in a single cellular family, that's not helping the parent. They're not getting the support they need.
Right.
They're struggling. The student is, there may be embarrassed or ashamed, and that's where I want, when I go into a school, I'm able to share my experience and bring other stories in, so they don't feel like they're the only ones. They may have an aunt in rehab, and when I speak about family or relatives, then they're like, oh, I have somebody in treatment. And where it should be a conversation. This isn't a health issue. This is not a moral issue. And if we stand behind this is a health issue and not look at this as right or wrong, then we can create change. I think we label things today as like, oh, that's bad. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's ugly.
On first blush, versus going and doing some investigative work and finding out what's going on underneath the top.
Yeah, and stereotypes. Think about the stereotypes. Like, I'm 6 foot and blonde.
Right.
So everybody, believe me, they had stereotypes. My first sponsor called me Barbie forever, and I hated it. No offense, Barbie's a lie. And I said that's a whole different show. But the stereotypes of like black, Hispanic, Muslim, or smart, or stoners. It used to be like the stoners, the jocks, the cheerleaders. Right. Oh, she's easy. Right. Oh, she wears a lot of makeup. Oh, she must be a slut. Or he's Asian. He must be really smart.
Right. I remember that.
Right.
When I was a kid.
And we talk about that in a class. Like, what are stereotypes? Where did we learn them? Where do we learn stereotypes?
Right. And
to break those down, because that again, it creates separation. I think Snoop Dogg today was having something downtown where he was inviting the Crips and the Bloods to have a conversation.
Wow.
But that's beautiful because
it is.
And I learned this thing called nonviolent communication, and it was created for gang members to have conversations, and I use that language today with and teach kids how to express what they need with adults and even with their friends, and take responsibility.
Right.
Take responsibility for your feelings. You cannot tell somebody that you make me mad, you're doing this, because they'll shut down. They won't understand.
It's true. That's some great information. We're going to take a little break, and we're going to be right back.
I would like to take a moment and talk to you about the Villa Treatment Center. Their integrated substance abuse and dual diagnoses program rests on foundational principles of personal responsibility, structure, and service. Whether you are at the beginning of your recovery journey or farther along the road, the Villa Treatment Center offers an individual plan to suit all of your recovery needs. Detoxification by doctors specializing in addiction medicine, residential treatment, transitional living, day treatment, and full care outpatient services are available. Please call 818-505-6900 for further information. That's 818-505-6900 and begin your recovery now. The website for Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is www.latalkradio.com. Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is on Channel 1. We are broadcasting live from our studios every Sunday at 6 p.m. West Coast time. All of our shows are archived on the www.latalkradio.com site and can be accessed 24/7. Our call number is 323-203-0815. That's 323-203-0815. And now back to our show.
Okay, we're back. Diana, I've got a question for you. What are the usual questions that people have for you when they're inquiring about your website and your company?
What age and what schools do I go to? What are the age? What kind of language is it? Is it language appropriate? What are you saying in the classroom? Because when I've go in a classroom, we usually ask teachers not to be in there, not because we're some secret society or we're saying anything that I wouldn't say in front of teachers, but it gives students the opportunity to ask questions without feeling uncomfortable.
Exactly.
I have the teachers come in and take roll, but and then I do ask. They'll ask like, well, what do we do if we find out if there's a kid that's in trouble? Well, that's where the school gets to step in and speak about, what is the steps they'll take if a student comes in and tells that they have a problem or a sister has a problem or there's a student. So, I'm there to support students, stand for them, give parents up-to-date information. If parents are too embarrassed to come to the parent meeting, then they can call or Skype me, because I've gone to schools all over the world, and there are some cultures where parents aren't comfortable to asking questions or speaking publicly. But I'm always preaching to the choir when I'm doing parent meetings. So letting students know that they're amazing, passionate, they're the cool kids.
Right.
They're our future.
Right.
We don't need any more addicts.
No, we have enough of them.
We have enough.
Yes.
Please.
Stop.
Stand for your friends. Stand for your greatness. It's okay to be amazing.
Yes, it is. Sure it is.
And I want you to celebrate each other. And I want you to stand for your friends' greatness. I want you guys to be able to express openly. I really think you're an awesome person. Kids are hiding, not wanting to share too much, not give too much attention. They're so afraid of getting their feelings hurt or feeling not a part of.
Right.
Just as adults, they think they have peer pressure as adolescents. It never gets any better as an adult.
No, God, it's worse.
Yes. So peer pressure is going to be all your life.
Yep. It gets worse as you get older because you have more coming at you on the peripheral. I mean, it's insane.
But it's the internal peer pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is that's pressuring us, because nobody's standing over my chest or putting their knee at my chest. That's where kids get the choice. They have a choice today that they get to express that they're alcohol and drug free, or because I go all over the world. I do things that there are alcohol and drugs at many places.
Right.
But I have friends around me that know my truth, and also if I'm, know why I'm going, and I know my truth, then I can't be affected or hurt.
Right.
And there's other refusal skills. I give kids refusal skills on what to say, same refusal skills that I use today as a non-drinker that work great for me, and I share them with them.
That's incredible. This has been one of my better shows, I think. The information that you've put out is just fantastic. I mean, I didn't even know that there were people out that were doing this as a business full time, going out and reaching out to these children and their parents.
And faculty. Faculty has a huge important component. So it's an all working encompassing. We're all here to grow our youth to responsible, loving, amazing kids.
Thank you for being here, Diana. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
The website for Global Youth Prevention is www.gyprevention.org. That's www.gyprevention.org. We are at the end of this week's show, but make sure to tune in next week for another hour of reverberating Recovery Talk Radio. Again, I would like to thank Diana for sharing her story with us. Our mission is to provide a safe platform for those who are suffering from various forms of addiction. We are just people willing to listen and offer suggestions to those in crisis. And now we will leave you with the words of the late, great John Flynn.
Disappointment. Disappointment is the caboose on the tootsie train of expectation. Anything you want from anybody, you give them what you want from them. It's the only way you're going to get it. Life is about giving, not getting. Day at a time.
Thank you, John. And thank you for listening. Good night and good luck.
You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.